Today, I sit down with Pete Voss. He's the founder and broker owner of 3% Listing Company. This guy, last July of 2023, he went out and said, I'm going to start a brokerage and I'm going to take listings that do not offer the buyer commission. So he's been doing this since last year, over a year ago. So he has a very interesting perspective, and he has interesting data points because he's been doing this for a while. So I figured this would be a really good interview for you to listen to because this guy's really ahead of the curve. Like what you're experiencing moving into the new rules, he has already been experiencing them for over a year now. Okay, so I figured you guys could learn something from Pete, and I'll read here about his company. We offer a unique financial advantage to our sellers by only paying for the representation they receive, allowing buyers to negotiate their own agent's fees and keeping transparency, honesty, and clarity at the forefront of each transaction. Our brokerage caters to a diverse clientele, including first-time home buyers, high-end buyers and sellers, and cost-conscious individuals looking for exceptional value when selling their home. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. Enjoy. Pete, how you doing?
Dude, I'm doing great. It's a lot of fun right now, man. There's a whole
It's
lot of changes going on. It's been great.
it is interesting, bro. It is interesting. So you actually started the company 3% listing a year ago, right?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
June 1st was
And
our
I'm
year.
literally asking you because I don't know, just for the viewers. Like I'm not, this isn't rehearsed. I don't know the stats. I'm like literally figuring this thing out. And back a year ago when you started the company, you literally you take listings and you a year ago you stopped offering a buyer agent commission on MLS. You literally put zero on MLS, correct?
Yep. Yeah, that was our big thing is just trying to figure out a way that we can still provide a listing service to our sellers, but really push that negotiating position for our sellers to be able to negotiate how much they want to contribute to the buy side
Mm.
agency, and if they wanted to at all, or kind of what they wanted to do that way. So we just give them that flexibility to be able to kind of negotiate that into their transaction.
I want to, there's so many questions and I want to get into like, has it reduced showings and stuff like that, right? And interest in the properties. But you did this a year ago, obviously, where we're pretty deep into this, this massive like lawsuit, and nobody really knew a year ago kind of how it was going to play out. Um, I want to say the Sitzer Burnett trial actually went on, I think, I want to say Octoberish is
Yep.
actually when it actually was in court. And so you actually created this business model before the court case even happened. So my first question is like, why did you do this? How did you, what exactly brought you to saying, just going to quit offering the buyer agent commission?
Yeah, so we kind of I went back and forth conversation. So I'm in business with my dad, and we had, man, I bet 3 years of conversations back and forth about this and what it would look like, and how is it going to change agency, and how is it going to change how people are getting paid, and I mean all of these different facets, and kind of talking through all of these things. And then it really wasn't until seeing the trial and how things were progressing that I really realized, hey, there's going to be some big changes that are coming this way because of this. It really is going to shake things up. And so we looked at it as an opportunity to do things a little bit differently, and kind of jumping in to see how can we make a difference? How can we build a business model that's a little bit different, and force people a little bit out of their comfort zone? We're in a model that says, hey, you as a buyer's agent, we're not offering that paycheck anymore on the listing. So you need to have a conversation with your buyer
Uh-huh.
to discuss what is your fee and how are you going to get paid. If you want to include that into your offer, then you can bring it in. But now it's bringing those conversations to the forefront, and really making. I think really the thing that bothered me most was, for years and years and years, we had so many agents that were marketing buyer's agency as it doesn't cost the buyer anything.
Mm,
And, oh, you can, call me to look at this house. It doesn't cost you anything to work with me.
mm,
And that just never really sat right with me, because I looked at it and went, if it doesn't cost them anything, that means that the seller is paying both agents. And now why is a seller having to pay an agent whose only job is to negotiate against them? I
mm,
mean, that's their one consideration in putting that deal together, is to try and get as much money from the seller as possible. And the
mm.
seller has to pay them, a certain percentage of that. So we wanted to kind of separate agency from the compensation. And this was kind of the model that we said, thought maybe would be the way to do that.
Man, how scary was it to actually, because I'm sure you thought of this like jogging or, like taking a walk or, riding a bike or whatever you do when you come up with these great ideas. Because like I see you, even though, we were getting close to Sister Burnett, right? I still see the move you made as a visionary type of move. Because honestly, back then, before Sister Burnett, like it was literally like most everybody, like there were some people that were saying it's going to change, but most everybody was saying how everything's just going to keep going and be the same. But you months and months ahead of the trial. So, but when you thought of this and then you actually took the physical steps to actually start implementing it, right? How scary was that? Because
It,
at the point, like you see the comments on my Instagram, like, agents don't like this kind of stuff, right?
yeah.
How scary was that? And what was the pushback you got from your local agents when they saw a listing with zero being offered to the buyer agent?
Yeah, it definitely was scary. We looked at it as an opportunity to really appeal to sellers. So we felt like there's still going to be transactions. It's not like we're just going out and doing something that we're going to have to work really hard to get this business up and running, because we definitely have a proposition to offer to our clients. So from that standpoint, we weren't really concerned. But yeah, the feedback, reactions that we were going to get from agents was definitely something that was a concern. And I would say, really, the feedback that we got was kind of a mixed bag, all the way across the board. I've had agents that have called me up, and as soon as I answered my phone, just started screaming at me about what we were doing, and how dare we do things this way and not offer a compensation. And I had one agent that when we initially started, there was a little bit of gray area on whether we had to offer something. And
Oh
so on our
yeah,
first initial listings, we only offered like $100.
right.
And so I had one agent that called, and she had said, is your compensation really only $100? And I said, yeah, it is. And I explained, for probably 3 minutes, explained how we can structure this so that she could still get paid.
Mm,
And I got done talking, and she goes, well, I can't work for $100, so I suppose I just need to send him to you, and you can show the house. And I went, you're right. That's exactly what you should do. I have no problem with that at all.
mm,
Give me a call, and I'm happy to go show it.
right. And then
And she
what? Did you
did.
give her a referral or something?
No, because there was no buy side at that point. I didn't have a relationship. I didn't have any money to give to a buy side agent.
No, but no, not a buy side. Like she referred the guy to you though, right?
She just said, hey, I can't do this for $100, and so you need to call the listing agent.
Right.
And so
E-
we caught
Essentially, it's a
so
referral though. But
yeah.
she didn't ask for a referral, I guess, and you weren't offering.
And we weren't offering a referral. I mean, truthfully, I mean, if we're working with buyers, we're having the same conversations that every other agent is about. These are the services that we're providing, and this is what
Mm,
the cost of those services are.
yeah.
And we're going to try and work it into the deal. So no, that wasn't a case where we're going, well, hey, if you don't want to show it for $100, then I'll pay you a percentage of whatever I get out of the deal.
Yeah.
Hey, if you, Mr. Agent, can't show your value to your buyer,
Sure.
I'm not going to pick it up and then turn around and hand it to you.
Yeah. So did you have agents that steered their clients away from your listings, you feel?
It's hard to say. That's one of those things where you never know what those conversations are looking like on the other side. Um, I don't know that it was, I don't know that we've lost traction on showings because of it. I do know that there were a couple of conversations that after I explained what our business model was, that the agent said, well, then, I'm just going to really struggle to show your house if we're not getting compensated. And I
Mm.
would just stop them in their tracks and be like, hey, I think you need to go and talk to your broker, because I think you might start to say things that you're really not going to like,
Mm.
that are really going to be a problem for you down the road. And so we really made a point to try and curb those conversations, because that's not a conversation I wanted to hear them say either. Oh, I'm not getting paid enough to go show your listing. I
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
that's not the route we want to go.
It's
So,
like, what about the client, right? Like, what about
yep,
the client?
yep,
It's so fascinating, man, what you've done here. So I guess you can look at data and you can say, here's the average days on the market from listing to close, or listing to pending, right? Listing to
yep,
pending. You could say, here's the days on the market from listing to pending for the rest of the market. Here's the average. And here's the average listing to pending days on the market for our company. And we don't offer buyer agent commission up front.
yeah,
We're happy to oblige on the back side, depending on what our seller's appetite is to accommodate.
yep.
But have you looked at the data for contract to pending, average market compared to your listings?
Yep.
Is it
So for our first year, so like I said, June 1st was our 1 year anniversary, um, and our numbers are right in line with the rest of the market, and so we
isn't
haven't
it
seen a fall
fascinating?
off of anything that way.
So I have a huge team leader here in my local market, and I'm like, bro, honestly, yeah, we'll still pay buyer agent commissions, but we'll do it on the back end in the purchase agreement, if in fact that's what the buyer wants to do and the seller's willing to take it. But as far as offering up front, it's just something that I don't feel like is in the best interest of the seller. And honestly, the way the rules are, you can't really you can, like, here, you can put it on your website, right? Your personal website.
Yeah.
Who's looking at my personal website to see if I'm offering a buyer agent commission, right? It's literally non-existent. So
Yep.
you don't know. All you can really do is reach out and see. And then whatever they say doesn't matter, because you were going to put it in the contract anyway.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
there's no need in offering 3 or 2, because you don't know if they're even going to offer anything. They may have a deal worked out with the buyer, right? They may have swung a deal when they listed their property to represent them for like a flat fee or something on the back end on the buy side. You don't know what the deal is they worked out. So why even offer anything if they're going to put whatever they want in the offer, and then you can negotiate it from there?
Yep.
And he's like, I'm not really there yet as far as, realizing that people aren't going to look at properties if they're not. And I'm like, the clients don't care what the commission is. They like the house.
Yeah.
Only the agent cares, and the agent doesn't have any control over what their client sees, because their client sees it online. They're going to go see it regardless of what the commission
Yep.
is. Well, what if they agree to pay whatever the seller doesn't cover in terms of the buyer agency agreement? In my opinion, in that case, those buyers are going to go directly to the listing agent. So are
Yep.
you finding a lot of that with your model? I mean, we're not there yet where the market's saturated with sellers that aren't offering a buyer agent commission, but for the year that you've been doing this, have you seen buyers coming directly to you as a result?
Not yet, because
Yeah,
I still think that I think the buyers are still uneducated in that they
right,
don't see the differences yet,
right.
and so I think that that's coming. And that, to your earlier point, I think that's really something that could be a one of those factors that decreases the amount of buyers agents in the marketplace, but also the amount of money that a buyer's agent is able to collect, because educated buyers will understand how things are, how commissions are based,
Yeah,
and then start to weigh their options a little bit more. And
right.
so, so yeah, it's not something that we're seeing quite yet. But there's definitely, in the same school of thought, when you start to talk about agencies that, or brokerages that are still collecting compensation and offering out co-op,
Mhm.
to me, I feel like there's a potential for liability there, because now they don't have a one place to put that offer, so that you can't put it in the MLS anywhere. So now they have to make sure that they are not hurting their seller by not communicating this offer to every single agent that calls. I feel like that's opening them up to liability. So for an example, if you've taken a listing and you're offering a co-op compensation, but we don't know where necessarily where that is. I call you, I say, I call you because I've got an agent that or a buyer that wants to write on it, but you don't answer my call. I'm still writing the offer. Well, now there's an unknown there. And now I may be going, okay, they're not offering anything. I have to go off the assumption that you're not offering anything. So now I'm counseling my buyer in that same way. Well, now my buyer is writing an offer that's lower because they're going off the assumption that there's not a compensation offered. Well, now just because you, Mr. Listing Agent, didn't answer your phone, have you hurt your seller's uh,
Mm,
your seller's bottom line? Because
mm,
now the offer that they're getting is lower simply because you did not have
mm.
a way to communicate what that compensation was.
Right, right. There's so much. It's so fascinating, like the
Yeah.
world
Oh,
that we're in now.
it is.
Going back to that team leader, he was saying he's not quite there yet on not offering it won't reduce showings. And I said I used to believe that, but I quit believing that a while back, that offering the buyer agent commission actually increases or decreases activity.
Yeah.
I believed it for a while because we've all been programmed. We've all been programmed to believe certain things. But it's fascinating to hear that your days on the market from listing to pending lines up with the rest of the market.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has not, to us, it has not seemed like that's a factor
Now,
at all.
okay. So what does it look like on the back end? Like you get offers with compensation? Is it 3%? What's the standard deal that you normally do, right? All these sellers listing for 3%, but then ending up paying 5 or 6 on the back end. Like
That's so
what
that's
is
what
it?
I love. That is what I have loved the absolute most about all of this is that no single deal has been the same. Like every single offer that we get is has some component that's a little bit different and gets to be negotiated out, whether it be the rate that the buyer is willing to pay their agent, or how much they're asking, or maybe how much they're not asking. I think that has been the greatest thing about it is it just leaves so much more ability for the seller to negotiate on the table, and have more opportunities to come out ahead. And so that's what I love most about it. But a very interesting component to this is that um, we are seeing buyers agents that are getting typically more. If I was following our industry, our local markets, kind of history of what they are offering in their compensation, buyers agents that purchase our house, our listings, and are negotiating their compensation into the transaction, they're actually getting paid more than they would have had they went and bought one that was offering a co-op compensation, because they have the ability to negotiate their fee with their buyer and figure out what their buyer is willing to pay them for a compensation, and then turn around and include it in their offer, as opposed to just settling for whatever amount I decided that I wanted to offer them in compensation.
So you, like I say, I consider you somewhat of a visionary with this, right?
I appreciate
You
that.
took this and like created a business model and went out there. When you did it, obviously, I would think that your business had a spike up because you're offering 3% commissions. It's a different model. So did your business, you know,
Yeah,
uh,
we definitely pick up a lot of phone calls of people that are just going, "Hey, I drove by and I saw this list for three, sign. What is that about?" And we explain how we do things and how we do things differently. And a lot of people go, That makes a lot of sense. Now we don't we've lost out on listings as well, that people
Mhm.
look, hey, I want to go with the more traditional route, and that's
Right.
perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it definitely has spurred a lot of conversations, and that was one of the reasons. I mean, why we created the company the way that we did was I wanted to anybody who has ever driven by and seen one of my signs or seen an ad and seen our company name before they're sitting down and signing a listing contract for 5%, 6%, 7%, whatever it is, that they're looking at it and going, well, what about that other 3% company? What is that? Maybe I need to explore that option
Mm,
before doing this. And
mhm.
we've had a lot of conversations that way.
Right, right. So with you, obviously you have some kind of gift of being able to kind of see ahead a little bit and take actions to take advantage of situations. What's your take on where we kind of go from here? Do you consider the current market where the sellers are willing to pay the buyer agent fees in the offers like you've seen in some of your offers, because that's kind of been like the traditional, as you say, route. And right now you've got agents that are like, oh, we'll be fine. I've got buyers signing 3% agencies and sellers are paying it on the back end. We're literally 1 week into this thing. I'm kind of considering this more of a like a dead cat bounce situation where it's kind of a false reality of kind of where we're actually going and giving agents a false sense of security with this, in my opinion. But where do you see this going? Because you have experience here. You've dealt with sellers on listing for three and then negotiating in the commission. You've done it in the traditional world, which was the world of yesterday. Now we're in the new world, and obviously you have some kind of gift of vision for where this thing might go. Where do you think this is going in terms of buyer agency, sellers willing to pay X percent to the buyer's agent that's negotiating against them?
Yeah.
Buyer agency, buyers pay, like what's your thoughts? Because I know you've spent a lot of time thinking about this.
Yeah, I think from the seller side, so the perspective that we have and that we share with our sellers is that instead of focusing on the purchase price, they need to be focused on their bottom line. How much are you walking away from the transaction with? So
Yeah.
set aside the fact that you're paying for a buyer's agent, or and we kind of put it in the same light that we would with a buyer that's asking a seller to pay for concessions, pay for, contribute money towards their closing costs. We talk to our sellers and say, don't worry about where the money's going. Don't worry about that. Let's focus on your bottom line, because that's what matters most to you, is how much money are you walking away from the transaction
Mhm.
with.
Yeah.
And so if we're negotiating from that aspect, then it allows the seller to still keep a deal together, because at the end of the day, the seller's goal is still to sell the property.
Mhm.
And so that's what we love about the model, is that we're bringing all of these terms to the seller so that they're able to weigh it all out at the same time and say, hey, yeah, look, I'm perfectly fine, paying their buyer's agent, because they brought their price up to offset some of
Right,
that
right, right,
cost.
right. So
So
you think it's something that will continue for years and years and years to come?
I think so. Now, where I think things will change is on that buy side, because, like you said, we're still just kind of stagnant on the buy side. People still doing what they've always done, charging fees that they've always charged on the buy side. They're just negotiating that out with their buyers and still working it into the transaction.
Mhm.
I think that there's going to be more components more competition coming into the buy side. So you're going to start to see probably just wild business models that come into the buy side that are going to drive those costs down.
Mm.
Um, and there's going to be a fair amount of quality buyers agents, if they can share their value with their clients. I think there's still a lot of opportunity for them to get three 3%, or whatever fee that they are. I
Mhm.
think you could probably see some buyers agents that may get more. They may be
Mhm.
able to justify, hey, these are all the services that we're going to provide, and this is what the costs are.
Mhm.
So I think it really brings more of a free market to that buy side agency that we've never seen before.
Mhm.
And then just like any free market, you're going to see a lot of different factors that are going to start to weigh out where do we end up on a common number, like what is the most frequent number, what's the average that agents are getting on that buy side.
Yeah.
So I think the buy side is going to be really where we see the most change, the
Yeah.
most decrease, and the most volatility.
Mm, yeah. Do you feel like have you looked at other countries and how they operate? Do you feel like um do you feel like we'll see a lot of unrepresented buyers?
I think we'll
A lot of
see.
people are talking that, right? A lot of people
Yep.
are putting that out there.
Yep. I think the implementation of the requirement for buyer broker agreements, I think, is going to push to see, you'll see more unrepresented buyers for a longer period of time. So
Mm,
that I think buyers will do more shopping around, going and looking at open houses, looking at maybe doing one-time showings with the listing agents,
right.
before, just because they have a little bit of a hesitation to sign up with a buyer's agent.
Mhm.
Um, and so there may be some opportunity for listing agents to put together more deals that way. I think dual agency is going to be a very interesting dynamic for things as things continue to work themselves out. I think that we'll see dual agency become a little bit more of a topic and a little bit more of a discussion, because you're going to have more buyers that are going to be, if they're not able to look at a house with a buyer's agent without signing a piece of paper, I think we're going to see more buyers that are just going directly to the listing agent. That's
Mm,
going to create those opportunities for that dual agency. And so I think that's where we'll start to see maybe some issues coming out of that.
yeah.
But yeah, I think unrepresented buyers are definitely going to be something that we'll see more of. But at the same time, is that necessarily a bad thing? If you have experience now, unrepresented first time home buyers, I think we can all agree that that's probably a terrible idea. Like that's a tough thing to get into, for people to try and make it through a purchase of a
Yeah.
home on their own, unrepresented. I think is going to be really tough.
Mm,
But we just had a listing that was a foreclosure property that the buyer that came in has bought hundreds of houses. And I talked to him about, hey, if you need representation, this is what the costs are. And he goes, I don't need representation.
mm,
I've got it taken care of. I
right.
said, okay, cool. Go talk to your attorney, have him draft up an offer, or we can figure out the details and put something together and see what we can do. And he did that, brought an offer, got it presented, got it put together. So now I'm only representing the seller. There's no buy side commission on the buy side. He's, a cash purchase to get this thing done. So I think it's going to open up avenues for experienced buyers to save on that commission side,
Mm, yeah.
and kind of see if they're, what they can do, knowing that they're comfortable doing it on their own.
So this was your listing and the buyer came to you first and you basically said, "Yeah, you can work with me, but this is what I charge." So you were going to charge them outside of closing?
Yeah. So the discussion that I had with him was, so because it was my listing, I'm there in service of the seller to
Mm,
show the property.
right.
So before we even looked at the house, he's signing a notice of non-agency. And so I'm having that discussion with him saying, hey, I'm here representing the seller. I'm not representing you. Please don't tell me anything about you and any negotiating. And so we're just a full disclosure of agency at that point. And then we kind of discussed, well, if you wanted to write an offer, this is what the cost would be, on the buy side. And he went, you know what? I've done this 100 times. I don't feel like I need an agent, and we can do this without that cost.
Yeah.
Perfect. You're right. I think we can.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting. I think why do you think agents are freaking out so much?
I think it's just the unknown. I think well, I guess I think that's a part of it. Um, I think the agents that are freaking out the most are the ones who can't wrap their head around how to structure deals moving forward. And if the seller isn't offering a compensation, how do I still get paid? Okay, this, you get paid from your buyer in your agreement that you have with them. And then if your buyer needs help with that, they can ask for help from the seller and try and work it into the
Mhm.
transaction that way.
Yeah.
Or they can pay you outside. So I think structure is
Mhm.
probably one of those that they just kind of can't see outside of what they've always done.
You know what I think? I think that they've been so dependent on buyer leads. Their whole business is buyer leads that were handed to them by a big corporation or a broker or a team leader.
Yep.
They don't have the skills to go develop leads on their own, and they certainly haven't been going after property owners
Yep.
to help them buy and sell, and which would turn your business into more of a listing based business. I mean, my answer was I had an agent today ask me where I was on a webinar, and they were like, if I have a buyer who can barely afford the down payment, how am I supposed to explain my value to the buyer? And I said, that's easy. Be the listing agent, right? If you've got the house that they want to buy, there's
Yep.
the value in your hand, right? That's how you that all the buyers are going to come to you when you have listings. Like we've shifted so far, the pendulum has swung so far this direction because of the way that it's set up. It's created a bunch of this massive group of agents that's dependent on
Yep.
third parties for lead flow. And it's like if you shut that off or create a situation where that type of lead, it's harder to get paid or you have to negotiate or have a harder conversation. I think that's the real issue really at hand.
Yeah.
And that the name of the game, like we should be screaming at agents. It's like buyers should be the bonuses of your business, the cherries on top, not
Yeah.
the core foundation of your business, right? The core foundation should be listings.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see a lot of brokerages looking at buyer side agency as almost like an ancillary income,
Mm-hmm.
and looking
Mm-hmm.
at that going, hey, it'd be great if we could have a lot of income from buyer agents, but our business is listings, and that's
Mm-hmm.
really where this business was built off of. The
Right.
real estate is built off of selling,
Right.
advertising, marketing,
Yeah.
selling real estate, not the buy side.